Okay. Who would like to ask a first question then? Who's got anything? This room's been booked till 8 something, so you best start asking.
I'll ask one. What was it like coming back to UK after your experience? Were you hyper-vigilant for a while? Were you like still there? How long did it take you to come up with the system?
I was in America for 17 years, so I had reverse culture shock, and also I was slightly getting institutionalized.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, so my mum said I was like a puppy dog following around the house waiting for orders in the first 6 months or so. And I did get asked to go and speak in a school quite quickly, but I declined that because I said I need to get my head straight first. And it took me about 1.5 years to shake that off and to feel like I was ready to do that. It was an intense experience, brought on myself and readapting to the world. It does do peculiar things to the brain. They call it gate fever as well. As you get close to your release, your thought processes kind of like start to focus on it, and it almost creates a mental disequilibrium equivalent to the intensity of when you're first going in. And that's really intense. When you're first going in, your normal thought processes are completely out the window. So you guys, for example, what am I going to eat tonight? I'm going to see my girlfriend, that kind of thing. But when you go into a situation like this, where people's heads are getting bashed against toilets, bodies are getting thrown around, people are getting carried out on stretchers, you go into raw survival mode. You're thinking, who can hurt me and who can I make an alliance with that will possibly protect me? So that's the most intense when you're going in. My heart was going like that for days. I couldn't sleep for days. It's just going all night long. So then when you're getting out as well, that gate fever causes a manifestation of similar symptoms as when you're going in, and when you get out, it's really intense. You're thinking, will people find out you've got a criminal record? Will they cross the road? Will I get a girlfriend? Will people not want to speak to me? And all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it took me a couple of years to seg back into society. Yeah. Okay.
Do you believe there was anything that could have been said or done to stop you from going on that path to begin with?
Could anything have been said or done to stop me going down that road? Good grief, that's complex, isn't it? Nature versus nurture and all that stuff. I'm a natural risk-taking person, and I was extremely emotionally immature. And if you further analyse me during my teenage years, what happened was, the most violence I ever experienced wasn't from gangs, mafia, or anything like that. I was a teenager, I'd passed my driver's licence test, and I went to fill up my mum's little red car with petrol, and 4 drunks, big fellas, started getting abusive with me, and I thought it was brave to stand up to them, and I got clobbered. I mean, one of them pulled out an iron bar and started hitting me in the face, knocking pieces of my teeth out, and I was lying on the floor in this pool of blood, thinking I was dying. I couldn't feel the pain anymore, and what happened was I went unconscious, and I did wake up, but it caused an anxiety in me that then when I went out, I won't dance, I won't go up and talk to women. I had this social anxiety that was really intense. And when the rave scene came along and the opportunity to take ecstasy, and I took ecstasy, all that anxiety that was bothering me went away. I didn't understand it at the time, but I was self-medicating for that issue. So that's what led to me taking the drugs. And then once I started in America, I was giving the drugs away to my friends as a social thing, but then greed took over. Because when you take drugs, it erodes your conscience, and you're not thinking of the harm that it's causing society. And I've got this business studies degree, and I started to apply that then to the drug distribution. So I fully deserve to be punished. I deserve to go to prison, and I think the punishment I got, it was the right amount of years for me to not make me too crazy, and to make me go inside myself and address. I didn't understand it all until that prison forced me to sober up. Drugs had put a cloud in my head that I didn't know was there. It scrambled my decision-making processes. And while I was telling myself, you're the man, this is cool, you're keeping the party going, for 10 years. But once that cloud lifted out my head, And I look back at all the dangerous situations I put myself in. I was so ashamed, and the harm I caused society and the harm I caused my family. It made me sick. But I realised I couldn't change my past. So I just resolved to go out and share my story in the hope, the young people wouldn't make my mistakes. Yeah, go for it.
If you work with a victim personality and you're already taking ecstasy, how come you was able to stop progressing like the other inmates were to heroin?
Okay, very good question. The road of drug use is a really long one. And young people, when they're taking the drugs, they think they're invincible. They're at the beginning of that road. And what happens is the first time you take drugs, the pleasure's very high and the pain is very low. And you think it's fun and it's great, you're having the time of your life, all this stuff. And that's why people keep doing it. But what slowly, what they're not noticing is the pleasure's going down a little bit each time you take drugs, and the pain is rising. And eventually they cross. If you've got an addiction issue, they cross, and the pain rises above the pleasure, but you're so addicted that you can't stop. Now, I only came to this understanding because in the jail, those guys were at the end of that road of drug use. 90% shooting up heroin and crystal meth, 2/3 hepatitis C, which was eating their livers up and slowly killing them, yellow jaundiced skin, teeth rotting out. And sometimes the prison would say to them, all right, we will give you the treatment for hepatitis C, we will save your life, it costs $30,000 a year. Under one condition, you stop taking the drugs. And those prisoners were so addicted, they were choosing to keep taking the drugs and die rather than get the treatment. And that's the power of addiction for you. I took off that road halfway down it. Those guys were in way deeper than me, and they couldn't stop. They couldn't stop. They were killing themselves and they couldn't stop. Yeah. Okay? Yep.
You ever consider suicide?
I did consider suicide. I didn't raise that today because I generally don't raise it in the schools or colleges because I think it sounds self-pitying. It sounds like I'm whining about my situation. I broke these laws and then, I'm going to feel sorry for myself. In my second year in the jail, when they told me I was facing 200 years, I was in maximum security, I didn't know anyone, couldn't sleep with the cockroaches crawling on me. After about 5 days of no sleep, you start hearing voices and hallucinating. And I was seeing imaginary cockroaches and stuff like that. So I was losing my mind. Prosecutor stopped my girlfriend from visiting me by charging her with one prescription pill found in our medicine cabinet on the day of the SWAT team raid that didn't have a written prescription with it, which is the class 5 felony. So by criminalising her, co-defendants can't visit co-defendants. It was to break me down psychologically, basically, and it was very effective. I had a pink eye infection, yellow pus coming out my eyeball, all these bleeding and itching skin infections and bed sores. And when they said 200 years, I figured, well, can I take 200 years of this? I can't. I'm going to slash my wrists after a guard does a security walk, and I'm going to bleed out. So I was waiting. I was bracing to do this. And I thought to myself, before I do it, I'm going to say goodbye to my family and friends. And what I mean by that, I was allowed 7 photos. So I get these photos out of my mum, dad, sister, girlfriend. I start getting really sad. I'm thinking my mum's going to get a call saying your son just slashed his wrist in an Arizona jail cell. I started crying, and I couldn't bear the thought of putting my mum through that. And that's what stopped me. That's what stopped me from doing it. But I also credit being pushed to the brink of suicidal madness for crushing that wild person out of me. Because in my first year of incarceration, I was resenting getting caught, I was pining for my old lifestyle back, and I was missing all that material stuff and the attention and the excitement. But when you're in a position where you're facing 200 years, your $1 million house on the mountain doesn't matter anymore. Your sports car is irrelevant. So what? You had a swimming pool. You just want to get your life back. And to this day, I wake up with a smile on my face because there's no dead rats in my food anymore. There's no cockroaches in my bed. When you've lost everything and you get it back, you have a whole new appreciation of life, and you actually appreciate the small things. And when you appreciate the small things, you don't go looking for trouble in all the wrong places, which was what I was doing. Okay? Yep.
What did you do between leaving prison and doing what you do now? Did you try and get a job or try and do something
Okay.
that you do now?
When I got released, I tried to get psychotherapy, and they told me there was a 3-year waiting list. And then they said, let's put you on pills. And I said, I don't need pills. I took pills in the prison because it was an environment that made me crazy, and I feel like I'm getting better now from all that. I really don't want pills. And the mental health people said, crazy people who don't think they're crazy are double crazy, and we want to put you on a double dose actually than what we were thinking. They were threatening to do home visits and section me and do blood tests if I wasn't taking these pills. This was all building up with the mental health team, because I was on the dole. The dole said, you've got to start lying at your job interviews and telling them you don't have a criminal record, because otherwise you're never going to get a job. All this was building up for a year and just over a year with the dole and the mental health people. And I moved down south, and for some reason my medical records didn't transfer, so the mental health thing stopped. And I managed to start becoming a self-employed person as a public speaker and an author. And then that's just built up every year for me, so every single year it's doing better. Yeah. Okay?
You were saying about how when you first got in, they ask about your charge, what
Yeah.
you're in for.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, what was their reaction to what you've done? And
Okay.
what are you worried about?
He's asking about the charge check. When you go in, they want to see your little printout from the jail, so they know what your charges are. Most prisoners, like I mentioned earlier, are in there for drugs. The majority is low-level drug users. So anyone who's got a crime to do with drugs, that's acceptable to the gang. And in my case, when they saw my printout and it had a $750,000 bail, they were like, hey man, oh man, who did you kill? You in the mafia and all this stuff. So the gang thought that was great, the greatest thing in the world to have a $750,000 bail. And they left me alone after that. Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Yeah.
Did Xena turn transgender as a sort of repression type thing?
Oh, I don't know whether Xena turned transgender as a repression type thing. I'll have to send Xena that question and ask. Yeah.
When it came to the young people, was there groups of friends, or did they end up coming in by themselves?
I'm sorry, could you start at the beginning of the question?
Right. You said a lot of young people got involved in this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Were they groups of them? So a load of friends coming into the same area, or do you think whether or not it was them just on their own being charged at once?
In prison?
Yes.
There were some cases where lots of people got arrested together, but I think most people, most young people were just going in there on their own, and then they're terrified of the gang, so they click up with the gang, and the gang encourages them to do all this stuff and gives them these. If you've got a swastika on your forehead, the gang knows you're not going to get a job. If you go to a job interview, they're not going to accept it. You're going to come right back to prison and stay in the gang.
Yeah.
And the prison, they allow it to be drug and gang infested. They don't give any rehabilitation education because they know you'll come right back to the prison too. And that's $50,000 a year of taxpayers' money per person who comes back to the prison. So the young people have got the pressure from both sides, from the gang and the prison, to come right back to prison. It's a disaster. It's a disaster for the taxpayers. And the private prisons in America are paying tens of millions in political contributions to the Republicans and the Democrats to keep these contracts going. And it's billions, it's tens of billions a year they're making off the back of it. And it's not the dealers, and it's not the violent offenders, the rapists, the serial killers they're making the money off. It's young people taking drugs. The war on drugs is a war on young people if you look at the number of arrests that are made each year.
So how many years did that guy get with the cocaine on the...
12 years.
12 years.
For some crumbs of cocaine on the carpet of his car.
Was it his?
I don't know. Yeah.
So when they started to find out that you were writing this blog and writing that people were beating each other up and stuff,
Yeah.
how come you didn't get treated as a snitch?
Yeah, good point. Some of the prisoners would say to some of the other prisoners, Attwood's writing stories about you and he's putting them on the internet, and I'd have people burst into my cell and say, someone told me you've put a story about me on the internet, I'm going to smash you. And I'm like, hey, slow down a minute, because that's called the okie doke in prison. It's a trick prisoners play where they try and get someone else to smash someone. So I'd say, look, anything I'm putting on the internet is with the permission of the prisoner. I write down what I'm writing on for the internet. They read it before it goes out. They approve it. And I never ever put anything out there with anyone's real names or anything that no one's approved of. So that's how I managed to... there was a situation where I wrote a blog about how the prisoners were manufacturing syringes from items you could buy at the inmate store and shooting up drugs with these syringes. And these syringes were putting big old holes in people's arms. I saw one prisoner walking across the yard with blood pouring down his arm, and he said he didn't know whether he was high off the drugs or the blood loss. So I put a blog about this on the internet, and an Aryan brother said that was effectively snitching, putting the prisoners' secrets out there. And he put out a green light to have me attacked. And half the prison yard then wanted to smash me, and the other half of the prison yard was protecting me, because all the guys I've been writing about, they were getting pen pals, they were getting books sent to them through Amazon from people. So they didn't want, if I got smashed, I get moved and I can't keep that going for them. So for 2 or 3 days, it was like I thought I was going to get smashed. But then a prisoner who was protecting me, who had seniority, a guy called Two Tonys, he called in a favour and it all died down. Two Tonys was a mafia mass murderer who left the dead bodies of rival gangsters from Arizona to Alaska. He was doing 141 years. There's a hierarchy amongst the murderers. If you've murdered rival gangsters only, you're at top of the respect in the prison. If you've murdered a woman or a child, it's KOS, kill on sight. The prisoners try and kill those guys when they come in. So Two Tonys squashed the beef, and I was okay to stay on the yard and keep writing. The prisoners appreciated that what I was doing was exposing the human rights violations and getting them pen pals and stuff like that. I wasn't trying to put things out there to cause problems for prisoners. Yeah.
I want to talk about the Narcos book, but there might be other questions more relevant to what you're talking about.
Yeah, go for it.
But obviously, it's a clever coincidence with the Narcos release on Netflix and that.
Yeah.
But I was more wondering about the research process of the book and the rationale behind it, why you wrote it.
Okay.
What you're aiming to do with it.
Yeah, good question. Okay, so my first trilogy was my life story, and then I decided to write a book about the war on drugs that I was going to call We Are Being Lied To, The War on Drugs. And about 3 years ago I started researching for this book, and I drive over 20,000 miles a year visiting schools and colleges, and my research in the beginning consisted of listening to every single documentary on YouTube about the war on drugs. And then I went and ordered loads and loads of books after listening to these documentaries, loads and loads of books. And I came up with, my story was going to be, has anyone read Chasing the Scream by Johann Hari? He wrote a book exposing the war on drugs and the racism. And basically his book is about all these lives of these people who interweave. And it's really moving and compelling, but it's got important lessons as well. So I thought that's an excellent structure. I'll have all the lives of these people who interweave, but it'll be action-packed, but it'll get this important message about the war on drugs. But then what happened, I did so much research, I started writing so much about certain people like Pablo and one of the other guys. I thought I could do a whole book on Pablo. And Narcos is out there. This is a good opportunity, business studies degree kicking in now. So that's what I did, and Pablo became an instant bestseller on Amazon. The publication was timed for the release of the second season of Narcos. Yeah, and my next book in the War on Drugs trilogy is about a CIA drug smuggling pilot called Barry Seal, and there's a movie coming out about him next year called American Made, starring Tom Cruise.
But it's hard not to talk about Escobar specifically without glamorizing it, because he
Yes.
also had a lot of principles where he brought back things for the community and looked
Yeah.
after things from a very nice perspective.
Yeah.
He had good intentions for most of it. So, you're mixing it here with your clash of culture and you're talking about, ending drugs or being more assertive.
Yeah.
How do those two things intertwine?
Okay, in my book about Pablo Escobar, I show that it's American drug laws created the opportunity for him. Yeah, and all they did was, when they took Pablo down, was they the police, the CIA, the American authorities, they weren't taking Pablo down to stop the cocaine going into America. They were taking him down because they were taking over his business. They were handing it over to the Cali cartel. George H.W. Bush said Pablo Escobar was the world's cocaine bogeyman, responsible for 80% plus of the cocaine going into America, which justified him spending hundreds of millions in military expenditure. And he's basically a representative of the military companies. So he got what he wanted. After they killed Pablo, what happened to the cocaine going into America? It increased. So even when they took the Cali cartel down years later, it just got handed over to the Mexicans. The Colombians were paying the Mexicans to go through Mexico, and the Mexicans were like, why do we need to have the Colombians anymore? Let's just squeeze them out. So now, because of the war on drugs, because of these laws that have caused cocaine, a worthless plant ingredient, to be valuable off the scale, you've got hundreds of thousands of people getting murdered in Mexico right now as these cartels fight over control of the cocaine market. But the authorities, people fighting the cartels, they're all fighting with American weapons. It's all about military expenditure. Okay?
What advice would you give to someone outside who doesn't do drugs, who knows people who do take drugs and do drug dealing on a small scale? How can you help them?
Okay. You've got to make them aware that road of drug use is a long one, and the horrific things that can come at you down that road. So if personally you know some people, I'd try and entice them in. If you used my story, maybe the Bangor Broad episode, but also then show them. My full talk to schools is on YouTube as well, on my YouTube channel. And if they can, that shows them then the horrors of what that lifestyle can lead to. Because it's hard. They won't. They're feeling invincible. They won't listen to people. And sometimes people just got to hit rock bottom before they'll change. Yeah. So you just got to try and think of ways for them to see what's going to come at them down that road. Yeah.
Just because they're so rigid in the ways that you feel like you can't get through. But recently, one of our friends has died from it, and they're still carrying on.
That's a shame. They think they're invincible. And can you tell them about the friend that died? The other friends are they aware of that?
Yeah, they are aware.
And they're still not bothering them because it's not a tangible thing to them. Yeah. Yeah, it just takes more education. Okay, anyone else got anything? Yep.
In your opinion, why do prisoners have such odd opposing views when it comes to things like human rights? For example, they obviously liked you because you shed some light on human rights violations in prisons.
Yeah.
And they have kill-on-sight rules for people who attack women and children.
Yeah.
Yet that is completely conflicting with the fact that they chop each other's heads off and show bodies to rival gangs.
Yeah.
Why do you think they can be on both ends of the spectrum?
Well, the other thing is as well, you got guys in there raping young people, but rapists, it's kill on sight. I don't know an explanation for it. It's just the way that the prison runs. It's like a jungle. Imagine all these different animals, and they're just trying to take advantage of each other in different ways. And they're some of the ways that they do take advantage of people. Yeah, I can't reconcile it. Yeah, but the other thing is as well, with the paedophile stuff, I did put it on the internet. I said, look, kill on sight for paedophiles in prison. What does the public think about this? And almost 100% of the comments were for it. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Yes, over there.
You mentioned that you were involved in a book, Making a Murderer.
Yeah.
Did you meet Stephen Avery?
No, I'm banned from America for life, so I can't go over. I can't go over there and visit them. I've been in touch with the family members.
Yeah.
Brad Dassey's been helping me a little bit in the last couple of weeks with the book, and Carla Avery as well, Stephen's niece. I'm in touch with her on the internet. There's some good Facebook groups they've got going. Avery Project, and
What do you think? Do you think he's guilty or not?
totally innocent. Yeah. And the reason that I say that is because I was for the death penalty before I got arrested. I thought someone murders someone in front of me, my family for example, kill them. I want them killed, you know. Once I got in here, in the prison system, and saw what's really going on. Okay, I'll give you one example, but there's loads, it's endless. DNA evidence is showing that hundreds of guys have been set up innocent on death row. My lawyer got a guy off death row called Ray Crone, snaggletooth killer. Waitress was found dead. Ray had been helping her at the bar that night to close. She had a bite mark on her chest and her neck. So the police went and arrested Ray because he'd been at the bar. DNA didn't match, bite mark didn't match. State of Arizona paid an expert witness $50,000 to say that his teeth matched. It's so common, it's called testy lying. They gave Ray $5,000 to defend himself, gave him a public defender. Court is not about justice in America from what I saw. It's theatre. It's theatre, competing theatre shows. Whoever has the most money puts on the best theatre show. So in my case, for example, my lawyer puts on his theatre show. I was this wonder child, stock market trader, you know, nice guy. Prosecutor puts her theatre show on. Attwood's the Antichrist, he's the devil reincarnate, you know, we need to give him 200 years. None of it's reality. I went to court 26 months, every month, 26 months. Listening to all this stuff, and none of it was grounded in reality. Whoever puts on the best show wins, though. So in Ray Crone's case, the snaggletooth killer, give him $5,000, death penalty case, prosecute him with the full resources of the state, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for a death penalty case. There was no way Ray was going to win. So he lost. And the jury found him guilty. His mum almost had a heart attack in the courtroom. He's on death row for 10 years. He's within hours of getting executed multiple times. My lawyer, Alan Simpson, sued the state of Arizona. They didn't want to release the DNA. They were forced to release it through federal court, ran it through a crime lab, it matched someone who was in prison, and that was the guy who'd murdered the woman, and he confessed to the crime. It could have been solved that easy. But prosecutors' careers hinge on conviction rates and sentence lengths. Why do people get 200 years? They can't live that long. Prosecutor can make a headline and she'll get a promotion. Death penalty cases are like the scoop of the century for prosecutors. If they can convict someone, they're going to get a massive promotion. So they'll convict innocent people. I've seen it. They'll do it knowingly, and they'll hide DNA, and these guys now on death row want DNA tests, and all these states are saying no, we're not going to pay the $200 to do it. We'd rather kill you than all our careers come on hinge and all that be exposed, and have to pay out compensation to these guys. It's really sick. That makes them as bigger criminals, or even not worse criminals than the people who are in prison. When it's like state sanctioned murder. Yeah. Keep going, yeah.
Sorry, so you said that it cost the taxpayer loads of money to put a prisoner away.
Yeah.
But am I right in saying that you were saying that private companies make money off these
Yeah.
people?
$50,000 a year of taxpayers' money per prisoner goes into the prison.
Private companies are making money out of these people that can't contribute to society.
Yeah. And Corrections Corporation of America are boasting in their shareholders' annual report, our profit growth is guaranteed because they keep coming back. Yeah, they're not correcting people, they're breaking them. Yeah, yeah.
I want to bring it to the UK and talk about the future of something like a circle, a business like that. You know, the privatisation. Where do you see that going?
It's going to follow.
Closer to American ideals.
It's going to follow the American model. Everything America does, we follow them, and that's our taxpayers' money just getting handed over to corporations who are some of the most predatory and evil corporations in the world. Pardon?
How can we prevent that?
I don't know, to be honest. All I can do is come here, give you guys a heads up. You guys are in positions where maybe you're going to be working in positions where you can influence this stuff, and maybe some of you guys can do that. I don't know. All I can do is put the information out there for people and hope that more people wake up, because people don't care about prisoners. They think they're paedophiles, murderers, rapists, robbers, and that's a very small percent of the prison population that the media goes on about. But once they get a call from their teenage kid who's busted for weed, who's in a cell with someone who's trying to rape them, and they say they need $10,000 bail to get out, that's when people wake up. And so many people have woke up to it in America now. That's why you've got the decriminalisation of weed in certain states in America. That's nothing to do with the federal government. They've maintained weed as a Schedule 1 substance, more harmful than cocaine with no medicinal value whatsoever. And the people putting up money up for that are the alcohol companies, the tobacco companies, and the pharmaceutical companies. They don't want it being explored, the medicinal properties to be explored. And they all put the money up for what's called a partnership for a drug-free America. And alcohol and tobacco, they don't want a competing product out there. So they'd rather have all these young people get busted with weed and go into these private prisons. It's such a setup. But the politicians on both sides are in on it. They're taking the money from these corporations so they don't stop it. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry. As well as the prison system, is the justice system becoming just as corrupt and racist?
Yeah, totally. The justice system is totally corrupt and racist. They just love, if there's been a murder, they just love grabbing a black guy and getting him guilty and then executing him right before the governor is up for election. Yeah, and Bill Clinton, they did that to a black guy. He was guilty of the crime, but he was so mentally, he had the mental age of a 10-year-old or something like that. And when they gave him his last dinner, when they went to take him to be executed, he told the guards, I'm going to just not eat my dessert, my ice cream, because I'm going to save that for when I come back after being executed. Yeah, didn't even understand. Yeah. Okay, next question. Yeah.
How much ecstasy did they find in your house?
None. I'd actually quit the business. Yeah, I met a woman who talked me out of it. She'd explained the harm it was causing, didn't want us at risk, and I quit a year before. And I was naive to the statute of limitations. It's 7 years. If you get caught for a drug crime, if you commit a drug crime, they have up to 7 years to get you. You don't need the drugs. I thought they had to arrest me with the drugs. I thought I got away with it. All it takes is someone from up to 7 years ago to say that person sold me drugs. That's it. Got you. Yeah. Yes, the lady there.
I might be completely wrong, but I thought once you commit a crime, you can't make any money off of it, like publication.
Correct.
But is that because you're self-employed?
There's what's called in America the son of Sam law, where you're not supposed to make crimes from things. I don't know what the laws are in this country, so I'm not sure what it is to do with that. Yeah. I mean, I've got my books out there, they're about crimes. I'm a true crime author, so if I couldn't make money off true crime...
Did you make money off the program?
No. Yeah, they paid me a small amount of money, which I gave to my parents because I owed them $100,000 in legal fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only knew that because you know the guy who did like the canoe thing and he pretended to die to get an insurance?
Right.
I just tried that he didn't make any money because you can't, if you've done a crime, you can't look at it.
Okay, I see. Okay. That was a bit more of a blatant thing. Go on.
In regards to saying about the statute of limitations and stuff,
Yeah.
it seemed like an intelligent person, so without being rude. After you quit,
Yeah.
selling,
Yeah.
leaving, if you didn't move back to the UK, would that have made any difference in your experience?
Yeah, I wouldn't have ended up in there. But even though I quit the dealing, I was still doing the personal use and I was still totally addicted and my brain was still completely scrambled from all the drugs. And every weekend I was sneaking off behind my girlfriend's back and going out with my party friends and getting high. So it was inevitable that I was going to end up in a disaster. Yeah, and that was my emotional immaturity. Yeah. Yep.
Do you ever worry that your books do the opposite of what you want and that they perpetuate and glamorise the prison system?
My books, do they perpetuate the prison system? Is that a possibility? And would that influence people to want to go in the prison system?
Effectively, yeah.
No. I think the opposite. The schools have me back every year because they tell me the cockiest, hardest to reach students like they're the ones who stayed behind and asked me the questions, and it's made them think twice about getting involved in.
I only say that because there are those TV programs where they put kids in prisons, and they're shown to do exactly the opposite. They don't. They're more kids who go on those are more likely to go in prison afterwards. So therefore, I was just wondering if that's been a thought. Obviously, I've read it, so.
I think my books do the opposite of that. And if you look in America at what is grooming kids to go into the prison system, it's the media. It's the media. You know, all the prison fashions and the rap videos and all that stuff. Anyone familiar with Rick Ross, the rapper Rick Ross? Yeah. Telling young people to go out and deal cocaine and all this stuff. He's got millions of views. He was a prison guard. Yeah. It's all total phony manipulation. And if you look at the companies, the music companies that put out all these videos grooming the young people to go into the prison system, if you look at the biggest shareholders in those companies, they are also the biggest shareholders in the private prisons. Yeah, it's such a setup out there, yeah. Okay, anyone else? Yes?
Have you gone in and have you experienced, not through being in there, but UK prisons?
Yeah, I just spoke at HMP Thameside, and they're flooded with spice right now. And T-Bone just sent me a letter saying they're flooded with spice out there right now as well. And the reason the prisoners do spice is because it doesn't show up in the P-test. P-test is carrot and the stick in prison. The guards know everybody's high, so if they don't like a prisoner, they'll P-test him. And that's also a reason why people prefer to do heroin over weed, because it stays in your blood. Weed stays in your blood for like a month or so, but heroin's only a matter of days. But with spice, it doesn't stay in there at all. So people are wigging out in prisons in this country and America doing this spice stuff. T-Bone said it's causing a lot of emergency lockdowns. Prisoners are jumping off stairs and just behaving all crazy on spice, stuff like that.
What's your opinion on differing conditions in America and UK?
Okay, what do we want prisons to be? Do you guys know why the police was started? The purpose of the police? Does anyone know the purpose of the police? Go on.
Something like the police are the people are the police, Robert Peel, so it was protecting the rights of the people.
Robert Peel started the police out of London to stop people from hurting other people. And if you look at how crime has been defined for millennia, it's been murder, robbery, rape, all these crimes where people are hurting each other, right? What happened was, in the last decades, the introduction to drug laws caused prisons and the police all their time to be taken up, mostly arresting low-level drug users. I'm a member of an organisation called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. I'm an associate member. There's over 100,000 police in this organisation. And they said they're sick to death of all their time being taken up, arresting young people for drugs and having them thrown in prisons where they just get turned on to harder drugs and they become proper criminals. If you go on YouTube and put in LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and watch their videos, they give you the most brilliant explanations of what's going on in America right now with all of this stuff. They say prisons need to go back to being prisons. They say the police, we join the police to arrest rapists, murderers, paedophiles, and we're not doing any of that. So the police want to go back to that, and the prisons need to go back to that, because presently it's nearly all non-violent drug users, and all they're doing is shooting up drugs all day and becoming worse. But all these companies are making money off the back of it, and that's why it's kept going. It's really sick, and I agree. Society needs to be protected from paedophiles, murderers, rapists, robbers. Put them in there for as long as possible. Keep them away if they're hurting other people. But what's a low-level drug user doing? Not talking about dealers. What's a low-level drug user doing? That person's hurting themselves. And then we put them in these places. They should be referred to mental health. They need help, counselling, rehabilitation. If you look at Portugal, when they decriminalised heroin, the police said, oh, young people are going to be doing heroin off the scale. It's going to cause addiction rates to surge. And what happened was, the heroin addicts felt they weren't scared of the police anymore, they came forward to the health teams for help. And heroin addiction has more than halved in Portugal because of the sensible approach that they've adopted. Holland, parents are having hash cakes in the cafes. That's no longer, it's not trendy to do what your parents are doing. Weed use has fallen for the teenagers in Holland. But we say if we do that here, it's a green light for everyone to go out and do drugs. But it's not. By keeping the status quo, all we're doing is making the situation worse. If you look around the world, it's where it's got the toughest laws against drugs, America included. They've got the highest rates of drug use and addiction and crime associated with it. Kids in America right now are saying it's easier for us to get heroin than it is alcohol, because the drug gangs will sell heroin to the school kids. They have no qualms about that. But alcohol is regulated by the government. Okay, anyone got anything else? Yep.
You mentioned how rife and accessible drugs were within the prison you were in.
Yep.
At any time were you ever tempted to go back into drugs? Or...
I wasn't tempted to go back into drugs in prison because I saw the horror of what drug use leads to. I saw those guys at the end of that road shooting up the heroin, crystal meth, hepatitis C, deadly diseases, and I was in a battle to get my life back, facing up to 200 years. There was no way I was going to scramble my head any longer. Once I'd sobered up from 10 years of drug use, it's like my thought process started to come back. Normal thought processes started to come back. And I was just horrified at what I'd done. Yeah. So I wasn't going to go down that road again. Yeah. Yep.
You talked about that you got into drug use because of this attack that happened on you, of course, social anxiety, you self-medicated. How do you think you self-medicated since coming out of prison? Is it just that experience that's completely sobered you up?
Sports. I do yoga, I do meditation, I do karate, I do body combat. Sports releases the same brain chemicals as the drugs, but it does it naturally. I come out of a yin yoga meditation double whammy, listening to Sasha in my car, driving home. Sometimes I get stuck at a traffic light, I'm smiling at the clouds, and people behind me are beeping. And that's the closest I've ever felt to being on ecstasy. 3 weeks ago, I was in Ibiza, dancing to Paul van Dyk till 7 in the morning at Amnesia. Didn't need the drugs. I'm happy in my own skin now. And my eyes were closed, I was loving the vibe, listening to the music. And people were coming up to me saying, "Are you off your head, you?" I was like, "No, I'm just enjoying the buzz, the scene, without the drugs." I think some young people, they're hurting inside, and they're looking for something to fill that void with drugs. But when you're happy in your own skin, you're confident enough to go out and have fun without doing that. Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Yeah.
Should we legalise drugs?
I'm totally for the legalisation of drugs, and that doesn't mean I want young people out getting blazed out of their brains. That means I'm sick to death of young people getting brutalised, young people, mostly weed possessors, getting brutalised in prison, getting criminal records that ruin their futures unnecessarily by people, judges in court and stuff like that, who probably drink alcohol, some of them smoke, maybe they're on prescription pills, all this kind of stuff. It's moral relativism. Who gives one group of drug users the right to send another group of drug users to a prison where they're going to get introduced to heroin, crystal meth, and brutalised by gang members? To me, that's a really unfair thing in society, and I think that needs to be reversed. I really do. What's that?
Cannabis.
Pardon?
All drugs or just cannabis?
Well, like I said about heroin, presently, people say if you legalise heroin, what's going to happen if you criminalise heroin? Look at what's happened in Portugal. Heroin addiction has halved. In America, where heroin is illegal, the drug gangs have control of the market. So they have no qualms about selling it to school kids. If the government could take heroin and regulate it and keep it away from kids, sequester it from kids, and give it a medicinal level of it to the addicts and try and simultaneously wean them off it, which is what happened in my hometown in the late 1980s, early 1990s. They started to give the heroin addicts medicinal heroin because it's really cheap to get to source it like that. And what happened in my hometown was the heroin addicts stopped robbing the shops, They stopped breaking into the houses. The police was made up. The shops were so happy with the results, it was going to get rolled out across the entire country, where the addicts were going to get weaned off heroin through giving them medicinal heroin, but counselling them to get off it. And it was making headlines across the world, this program, and the Americans found out about it, the DEA, and the Americans called Downing Street, and that program was immediately stopped. But that research got handed over to the Portuguese, and they're the ones who picked up on it. Yeah.
So if it makes the American government that much money, do you think they'll ever legalise it?
We're talking $2 trillion has been spent on a war on drugs. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of corporations making money. The prisons would empty. The justice system would empty. The prisons... I'll give you one example. All right, 3 strikes laws in America. Anyone familiar with that? 3 crimes and you're doing 25 to life in California. So you've got people in California serving life sentences for stealing pizzas. $50,000 a year of taxpayers' money, that's $500,000 for 10 years. So you're looking at over $1 million to house that person for 25 years for stealing the pizza. Right? So, public was outraged. Why are we spending over $1 million on someone who stole a pizza? Let's repeal the 3 strikes laws. So they went to court to repeal the 3 strikes laws. And who put up the money to stop it from getting repealed? The Prison Guards Union of California, who'd made $1 million contribution to the governor of California to get it introduced in the first place, and Broadcom, the exclusive provider of telephone services to the California state prison system. It's a racket. The whole thing's a racket. Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Yes.
Through your dealing, do you I will politely assume you didn't kill anyone from it, but did you hospitalise them?
What happened was, in the ecstasy market, every now and then counterfeit pills would come along and would make people sick and stuff like that. So what I did was, there was a website called Dance Safe, which was founded by one of the company directors of Microsoft, and they would have pictures of all the pills going around, and they'd say exactly what was in them. They would test them, but they also sold testing kits. So my guys who were going to Holland to get the pills would take the testing kits with them, and they would test the ecstasy and make sure that it was totally safe. And it was because I had a reputation for getting pure MDMA, 125 milligrams, 125 milligrams of MDMA and clays in a pill, which is a safe pill. That's why people were coming to me to get the pills, because I had this reputation for getting good, safe pills. Yeah. So no one ever died off any of my pills. If they had it done, I would have known right away, and the whole thing would have been shut down. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, at the back.
Do you think the privatisation of prisons will grow, considering that Theresa May's husband is a major shareholder in G4S?
What is that? That's a rhetorical question. Yes, I do. These guys have got control of the politicians, and the politicians have got control of the taxpayers' money. The taxpayers' money is a feeding trough, and all these corporations are competing to get their mitts in, and the ones who make the biggest contributions to the politicians, they get the contracts back. So it's unstoppable, because we're not in that chain. We're not in that chain of command. Yeah. Yes?
Do you think, though, that this kind of media attention, like you're bringing and making a murderer and things like that, will start changing things, or do you think it's a losing battle?
Well, making a murder is great, because that's not an isolated thing. That stuff's happening all over the country, and it has woke a hell of a lot of people up as to what's going on. But the old guard have got the big money, and they're trying to block the changes. So there's a battle. The other thing is the internet. You know, young people, I go to these schools and they got all this access to all this information on the internet I didn't have when I was a kid. And they're researching all this stuff. They're finding out about the war on drugs and what's really going on in the private prisons and stuff like that. It's amazing that young people, find out about these things and ask these questions. Because a lot of people, until they're actually involved in the prison system themselves, they don't understand it. Yeah. Okay, anyone else? All right, that was a fair amount of questions. Thank you very much for all your questions and your interest. Cheers. Thank you.